Can God provide what you need during those desert times of your life? Those desert times, those times when it feels like you just don't have everything you need. You're running short on supplies. You're looking for water and can't find the stream. You're in a desert moment. Not a moment of plenty, but a desert. Can God provide what you need even in the desert? This is the Mighty Oaks Daily Devotional. My name is Jeremy Stallnecker. And today we come to the 78th Psalm. This is a long psalm. There are 72 verses. We're going to look at a few different devotionals over the next couple of days from this psalm. But I want to point your attention to one verse. Excuse me. You need to read the entire chapter, the entire 78th Psalm. But verse 19 is where we're going to look here in just a second. The psalm starts off by saying, "Give ear, O my people, to my law. Incline your ears to the words of my mouth." And it begins by explaining really the history of the nation of Israel. Now, it's going to get to a point where we see that God demonstrates his love for his people, that God provides and supplies for his people. But it begins with the story. And if you read through the first several verses of Psalm 78, this is the story of the children of Israel in the wilderness. You know this story. They left Egypt. They crossed the Red Sea on dry ground, the miracle that took place there. Moses led them into the wilderness. They went to the promised land, but because they were afraid, they rejected God's word to go into the promised land, and they wandered in the wilderness for a really long time, 40 years. In the process of going into the wilderness, though, they started to complain. They said things like, at least in Egypt, maybe we were slaves, but at least in Egypt we had food to eat, and we had water to drink, and we had relative safety. We were slaves, but we had everything that we needed, and here we are. God has led us into this wilderness. At the moment that they began to complain, they started to talk about these basic felt needs. They needed food and they needed water. They needed shelter and they needed the sustenance, even of clothing, as they wandered this wilderness. In verse 19, they asked this question. Yea, they spake against God. This is crazy. They spake against God. Remember, God had delivered them. God had done a miracle to get them out. They had already watched the plagues that caused the Egyptians to push them out. God had done some amazing things up to this point. But now, because they're hungry and tired, they speak against God. Verse 19, here's what they said. Can God furnish a table in the wilderness? Can God furnish a table in the wilderness? Can God supply to us what we need at this desert moment of our lives? And I think this is the question that many of us would ask, and it's amazing how we can remember, as we talked about yesterday, the things that God has done. We can remember that God provides and supplies and has, and we can even look back on some of these incredible moments, and still, when we feel the pressure, when we feel overwhelmed, when we don't feel like we have everything that we need, we can look to God in spite of it all and say, can God provide what we need here? Maybe this place is too big. Maybe this situation is too difficult. Maybe this is too hard. Can God provide what we need here? We won't read the rest of this chapter, but as the rest of this unfolds, an accounting is given of exactly how God provided everything they needed. He provided water from a rock. He provided food, that manna from heaven. He provided meat by bringing the birds to them that they could have what they needed, what they were hoping to consume. They asked for meat and they finally got it because God brought it to them in the wilderness. It goes verse by verse and miracle by miracle of how God provided a table in the wilderness. Here's the point I want to make today. We don't always know why it is that God allows us to find ourselves in those wilderness moments. We can't always explain it. We don't always know even exactly what to do in the middle of those moments. But if we live for God and pursue God and continue to trust God, and the answer to this rhetorical question, can God provide or can He furnish a table in the wilderness? The answer is absolutely. God will provide exactly what you need, exactly when you need it. He knows where you are. He knew you'd end up there before you did, and He has a plan. He sustains His people, and He will not lead you into a season of life where He will not provide the provision to do in that time what He wants you to do. Listen, I know a lot of us would look at our lives and say, maybe it's kind of a wilderness time. I don't have everything I need. Can God provide for me here? The answer is yes. And as we remember what He's done in the past, we can look forward to what He's going to do in the future and pursue Him by faith, knowing that God, if He wants to, can even provide a table with the food, with the water, with the sustenance we need to have all that is necessary in these even very uncomfortable, very difficult moments. You can trust God. God is not driven by your environment. God has a plan. Trust. Thank you for joining me today. I look forward to talking to you tomorrow for another Mighty Oaks Daily Devotional. For more information about the Mighty Oaks Foundation and the work that we do for veterans, active duty service members, and first responders, please visit mightyoaksprograms.org.